Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into, a really concerning situation involving former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je and his health since his detention back in September 2024. We've gathered information from various news reports, public medical statements, event timelines, trying to piece it all together.
It's a complex picture, definitely. And what really jumps out is the stark contrast between his health before detention and, everything that's happened since. It raises some big questions, doesn't it?
It really does. So our mission here is to walk you through the key moments in his health decline, point out some unusual aspects of his treatment, and understand the core concerns being raised, concerns about medical rights and, whether there's more to this than just a straightforward health problem.
Right, because ultimately this goes beyond just one individual. It touches on how the justice system handles the health and well-being of people in its care.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Before September 2024, before the detention linked to the Jinghua Chen case, reports suggest Ko Wen-je was generally healthy. Crucially, no history of urinary issues, no blood in the urine, nothing like that.
That baseline is so important. It really highlights the shift. And yes, the detention itself came about because of the Jinghua Chen development case allegations.
Exactly. And he's been held since September 24 with detention repeatedly extended by the courts. Now, fast forward to early 2025. That's when, according to his wife Chen Peiqi, his health starts to, noticeably decline. February, she says, began with frequent back pain.
Yeah, and back pain can be many things, but it's the progression here that's key, isn't it? What happened next?
Precisely. By March, things seem to have gotten much worse. We start hearing reports of blood in his urine hematuria plus vomiting and insomnia. Those are pretty alarming symptoms together.
Definitely. That cluster of symptoms, blood, pain, vomiting, lack of sleep, points towards something potentially serious needing urgent attention, with a huge strain on the body.
Which leads us to the first medical intervention we know about. March 25th. He's hospitalized for ESWL, extracorporeal shockwave lithotripsy, basically using shockwaves to break up kidney stones.
So kidney stones were the primary suspect at that point. It's a common procedure for that.
Okay, so post-procedure, he gets tramadol, which is a morphine-based...
A strong painkiller, yeah.
Right. But even with that, reports say the pain continued, and then quite quickly, he's sent back to the detention center, seemingly without much improvement.
And that raises a couple of flags, doesn't it? One, how effective was that first procedure? And two, why return him if he's still in significant pain? Usually, you'd want pain under control before discharge after something like that.
Absolutely, and this is when it really blows up publicly. March 27th, his wife and some People's Party legislators hold a press conference. They stress his prior good health, no previous urinary problems, and announce they've filed for bail.
That press conference really put a spotlight on his condition and likely put pressure on the authorities.
But it didn't immediately work. March 28th, the court says no to bail and actually extends his detention again.
Wow. Given the health reports just days before, that decision probably just intensified the concerns about his care and detention.
Then Huang Kuchang gets involved. He was the TPP chairman then. On March 29th, he's publicly criticizing the handling, talking about medical human rights. He even goes to the detention center himself, delivers an application for Ko Wen-je to get self-funded treatment, and starts a sit-in protest.
That's a significant move. Invoking human rights, protesting directly, it's really escalating the pressure on the detention center.
And interestingly, later that same day, the detention center announces they are initiating medical care because Ko reported discomfort. He gets taken to hospital, but only briefly.
Briefly is the word. Less than 2 hours, apparently, before he's back in detention. Which makes you wonder what kind of assessment or treatment can really happen in under 2 hours for those symptoms.
It seems incredibly short. And then, the very next day, March 30th, the detention center puts out a statement. His vital signs are normal, hospitalization isn't needed.
Which just seems to clash completely with what his family and party were saying about his ongoing suffering, right? It highlights this gap between the official story and the reported reality.
Understandably, this leads to even stronger calls on March 31st from the party and family. Approve self-funded care, be more transparent about his condition. They clearly felt they weren't getting the full picture.
Yeah, that lack of transparency just fuels anxiety and mistrust, doesn't it? Makes it hard to understand the rationale for the medical decisions.
Then, April 1st, a third hospitalization. And this time, tests confirm it. Kidney swelling, caused by stones that hadn't been resolved. The doctors recommend immediate surgery.
So the swelling confirms the earlier procedure on the 25th hadn't fully cleared the problem, leading to this complication.
But here's the really strange part, maybe. Even with that recommendation for immediate surgery, he's sent back to the detention center again that night. Surgery scheduled for the next day.
Sending someone back to detention after being told they need immediate surgery. That seems highly unusual. Potentially risky, you'd think.
The surgery finally happens April 2nd, Taipei Hospital, laser lithotripsy about 45 minutes. They remove a stone, 1 by 0.5 centimeters, and reports say the kidney swelling improved afterwards.
Okay, so removing the stone is good, medically speaking. But it doesn't erase the questions about the delays and assessments leading up to that point.
Post-surgery, he's awake, sees the stone, gets medication, a stent is put in. Apparently, he wanted to leave the same day, but agreed to stay for observation. His wife thanked the medical team.
And while you understand her thanking the surgeons, the whole narrative of the previous weeks, the delays, the conflicting statements, that still hangs in the air.
It really does. When you zoom out, that contrast is stark. Healthy before detention, despite an old heart procedure. Then bam, blood and urine, severe pain, insomnia, nausea, vomiting.
Yeah, the sudden onset of that specific cluster of symptoms in someone with no prior history. It definitely makes you pause.
And don't forget, he was reportedly on strong painkillers like tramadol for a while, and they weren't even cutting it. That suggests how bad things were.
And the patterned short hospital visits, quick returns to detention, despite ongoing issues that just feels off, raises questions about how his medical needs were being prioritized against his detention status.
Right. And the official lines, stable vital signs, doesn't meet criteria, while his family is saying he's suffering. It just fuels suspicion that maybe we're not getting the whole story.
That discrepancy is really at the heart of the concerns, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes the accusations of delayed or insufficient care seem, well, understandable.
Which is exactly what the People's Party and his supporters allege, that proper treatment was held back until public pressure forced their hand. They criticize the selective info release, the contradictions.
And the timeline itself, with those repeated returns to detention despite worsening symptoms, kind of lends weight to those concerns, doesn't it?
We've also seen some general comments from medical professionals suggesting, kidney stones, if not treated promptly, can cause serious issues like swelling. And factors like stress, which must be high in detention plus delays, could definitely make things worse.
That link between psychological stress and physical health in detention is critical. Delays in treating a physical problem can have knock-on effects.
Plus, you have human rights groups and legal scholars weighing in, questioning the length of the detention itself post-indictment and whether there was enough humanitarian consideration given his health.
It brings up that fundamental balance, right? The justice system needs to function, but it also has a duty to protect the basic rights and health of those in its custody.
And this is where it gets even more serious. Some observers are talking about reasonable suspicion, raising questions about, potential intentional harm, or whether the delays were somehow politically motivated.
Now, those are very serious allegations and would need solid proof. But given the sequence, the rapid decline, the questioned medical decisions, the lack of transparency, you can see why some people might start asking those questions.
Our sources actually bring up some comparisons. First, the Lin Ping Shu case. Same detention center, also a rapid health decline, also accusations of delayed care.
Yeah, that Lin Ping Shu comparison is striking because it's the same facility. It raises questions about potential systemic issues there, doesn't it?
Then international examples are mentioned. Navalny in Russia suspected poisoning. Liu Xiaobo in China alleged delayed cancer care. Iranian political prisoners like Narges Mohammadi facing health deterioration.
Obviously, the political systems are very different. Taiwan isn't Russia or China. But these cases are grim reminders of the vulnerability of detained figures, especially political ones, if their health isn't handled properly and transparently.
And a key point made is that even without proof of poisoning, a failure to provide timely, adequate care, what some call slow harm, can become a serious issue, especially with political figures, if decisions lack transparency.
Absolutely. The combination of delays, lack of clarity, and questions about the appropriateness of care, that's what fuels the public concern here.
Which brings us back to basic rights. Presumption of innocence means detainees still have rights, including access to necessary medical care. Their health shouldn't be a casualty of detention.
Exactly. and the length of detention after the main investigation was reportedly done, you have to ask if continued detention was proportional, especially given his health.
You know, options like house arrest often come up in these situations, and the difficulties the family reportedly had getting full medical info, even with privacy cited, that raises due process questions too.
It's always a balancing act for the justice system legal goals versus the basic duty to preserve health, especially in nonviolent cases. Transparency is key to trust.
So wrapping this deep dive up, the main concerns are Ko Wen-je's rapid health decline in detention, serious questions about whether his medical care was timely and adequate, the lack of transparency from authorities, and these unsettling comparisons to other cases.
Yeah, it really highlights potential weak spots in how a system handles detainee health, especially when politics might be in the background. You need strong protocols, oversight, clear communication, all crucial for protecting rights.
So for you, our listener, hopefully this provides a clear picture of this complex situation. As it continues to unfold, it's worth keeping those broader implications in mind for medical rights, for how anyone is treated within the justice system.
And it leaves us with a really critical thought, doesn't it? How do we make absolutely sure that seeking justice never compromises basic human rights and well-being, especially in these charged situations? What's a non-negotiable standard for medical care and transparency in detention, and how do we enforce accountability to prevent any kind of slow harm?
That's a vital point to consider. We encourage everyone to keep following the story and think about these bigger questions about law, health, and human rights. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.